It's not like a theme party, right? Like I'm not gonna.
I don't think it's. I didn't see anything about in the invitation. I didn't see anything about dressing up, but yeah,
We should just assume.
that would be hilarious. Because I hooked him up with his insurance guy.
Yeah.
And him and his wife just had their first kid, but he's gonna go. I don't know if she's gonna be able to or not, but yeah, if we all just went just rocking 80s, that would be so funny.
80s hairband. That would be funny.
Be the clowns of the party.
It'll be nuts. It'll be nuts. How many people is gonna go? Do you know?
I don't know. I think there was 50 or 80 invited.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I knew some of them.
Hey, so do you? Before we jump into this, do you ever like have to rent a skid steer? How often?
Usually it's for gym stuff, but a couple times a year.
Guys, this is Ted Ross, aka Teddy Ross, Teddy R. He is actually a subcontractor for us. We refer a lot of our landscaping work to him. We don't get a lot of commercial jobs, but all of our commercial jobs, we've kind of tagged Ted as the commercial guy. But he runs a company called Statement Lawn and Landscape.
Yep.
Been running it, what, 4 years? 4 years?
Yeah. First year was part-time, and I helped another company, and I helped you that fall too.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next year we went full-time, and then last year I hired my first guys, and then this year, yeah, again.
Yep. And they're booming. He does good work. We refer work to him. He refers fertilizing and weed control to us, and you guys hear us talk about subcontractor relationships all the time, and I think Ted's going to be a great one to talk pricing. He dabbles in a lot of different things, but he wants to land on landscape enhancements, landscape maintenance. So I think he's going to be able to add a lot of value. And just to kind of tie some of the pieces together, we've had Jim Marmon on the podcast a couple times.
Okay.
And he's been a friend and a mentor to me, and same for Ted. And so he has helped Ted start this business, right? So why don't you give some background on like what you were doing before this, how you got into it, and then where you're sitting now?
Well, actually, so I worked for the city of Overland Park as a heavy equipment operator, and then I met Jim through a mutual buddy, and I did some odd jobs for him on the weekends, and we just built the relationship. And then when he sold his last company, he basically got bored and asked me what I wanted to start. I said, "Man, I just want the opportunity.
You tell me.
You tell me what to do. I'm not scared of work." And so we landed on a mowing landscape company, and he funded it and got the ball rolling.
Yep. And that was when?
2018.
2018.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that first year we got. I mean, he owns a couple of commercial buildings, so we got those to start with, and just through his network, we got a couple more. It was only like a day and a half or 2 days worth of work. And since I hadn't done the work before, I actually worked for another company at the same time, so I could kind of learn the ropes. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, how to.
So you left the city of OP,
Mm-hmm.
and then you went and worked for who?
His name is Zach Shelton at Inspire Lawns.
Okay.
And he's the guy that actually mowed Jim's property at the time.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I ran around and he taught me the mowing and some of the fertilization stuff. And
I remember Jim talking about this guy. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then about 3/4 of the way through, we were able to build up enough that we separated from him, and then I helped you a little bit on aerating and seeding that fall. And then the next year I went out and sold and got it where I could.
So that was fun. That was fun having you. Yeah. And that's kind of like where we got to know each other a lot more. I mean, you were hanging out with Tiago and I quite a bit, slinging some seed.
Yeah.
Wrestling Old Red.
Yeah. It was
Clausen narrator.
Yeah. It was fun. It was fun. I learned a lot from you guys too. I mean, it was.
Oh, don't suck up just because you got the headphones on.
No. Yeah, no. It was because Zach was a solo guy.
Mm-hmm.
He just didn't have the organizational, processes. I mean, he went out and he worked his tail off, and that's kind of where he was at. And he always struggled finding people.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was a good experience working for him and coming to see you. And just the difference between a solo and a company.
Yep.
I mean, there's a big difference when
Yep.
you start talking processes and things.
And so whose idea was that? Was that Jim's idea or your idea that you should go work for another company?
I think it was kind of mutual.
Yeah.
I mean, because it was getting to the slower time of the year
Yeah.
where he didn't have as much work necessarily, so it just worked out well
Yeah.
that we were able to
Smart. I mean,
switch over and learn a new skill set too. Because, like I said, he did a lot of granular. He did have just a spray tank that we did some stuff with, but yeah, I mean, coming to you, it's just a different
yeah.
aspect of the industry, I guess.
That's smart though. I think a lot of young guys should do that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you're, and most people that want to get into lawn care, maybe they already have like the weekend warrior set up.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
right.
if you're working full time somewhere else, you might as well
and
go learn the trade.
For your young guys that are listening, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, he said you always work to learn, not work to earn.
Yes.
So I would say keep that in mind. Don't go looking for the best opportunity money. I mean, your education is much more important than 12 or 15 bucks an hour, and the difference in that, because it long term not going to matter anyway.
Yeah, and it's an investment in yourself.
Yes.
is always
And
the best investment.
Yep. It pays the best. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool. It seems to be working out for you. So fast forward to where you're at today, what your company looks like, and then we'll get into pricing services.
Okay. Now I do a lot of the landscape enhancements and landscape maintenance, mulch, planting, that kind of thing. We've got a couple of municipality contracts where we weed their parks and things like that. So that keeps me busier than I should be probably. And then
you have connections, because I know listeners right now are like, well, dang, that'd be nice to get. You have connections with those, but also give some.
Well, sort of.
Well, how did you get those then? You knew
where
to bid those jobs.
I worked at Overland Park, and when I told everybody I was leaving to start this, the managers actually talked to the other managers and said, "Hey, he's doing this. Give him a shot." It's all low bid, sealed bid. Starting out, it's nice because you don't have the overhead that other people have, so you can still make money when you're. And a lot of these contracts.
What is a sealed bid? You said low bid, sealed bid. What do you mean
so,
sealed?
The bidding process, you submit your bids. None of the managers, nobody knows until they open them all at once. So,
okay.
So my biggest question I get a lot when I tell people, "Oh yeah, I work for Overland Park. I got the Overland Park contracts." They're like, "Well, so you know the numbers?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
The managers don't even know the numbers. I mean,
yeah.
It's just I had the opportunity through my network plus no overhead, so I'm able to bid it lower than a lot of these big companies, because when they send the offers out to bid, they're the big companies that they know they can get the job done. So I mean, that's kind of how that works.
That's cool.
And then that was for Overland Park, and then I've got some more with Shawnee, and that was just a cold email. I mean, it wasn't. You just put yourself out there and see what happens.
Yep. But you're a hustler, man. I mean, you're a hustler. You're always studying sales.
Oh yeah.
This dude sent me his list of audiobooks one time. Either you gave me access to your Audible, or you like sent me screenshots.
Yeah, I just gave you a password. I give that out to everybody.
It is like, it's insane.
Yeah, I think I've got.
How many books have you listened to on 2 times speed?
Oh, most of them, unless they talk fast, but minimum's 1.2.
Just blazing through books.
But yeah.
What's Robert Kiyosaki sound like on 2x?
He doesn't read his own stuff. He's too busy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, they hired that out. A lot of if you've got big time authors, they very rarely read.
Yeah.
They send it out because they've got better things to do than
sit there and read their own book. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no.
Some guys like to hear the sound of their own voice, though.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Grant Cardone.
Yeah, Grant's
I've listened to he reads all his own stuff.
Yeah.
But it makes it better.
Oh, it does. It does.
And sometimes he'll like ad lib onto something that wasn't even in the book.
Oh yeah. Grant, sometimes you gotta take with a grain of salt, but if you just boil it down to his message, he's a stud.
Have you listened to Be Obsessed or Be Average?
Oh yeah.
Were you the one that referred me that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, that one was good.
Yeah.
That one was really good.
All his stuff is and he's funny too, so it makes the listening a little easier.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm the king of like side tangents, rabbit trails.
Oh yeah.
All right, man. So landscape enhancements, landscape maintenance. One, I think, cool niche. Maybe you've switched it, but last year when we talked, you were doing a lot of bed maintenance, but pre-emergence.
Yes.
And so I don't know if a lot of guys do this, but you're just using like snapshot or preen.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be interested to hear like how that's going, what you're thinking about that, some of the profit margins there. So we don't really talk a lot about that on this podcast.
Okay. Yeah. So I actually go through Ewing, and it's called TI is what I'm using. But
TI?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
got same ingredients, whatever. But yeah, they have, and these are the Overland Park and Shawnee contracts that are the big ones. One's 3 acres, one's 4 acres.
Okay.
So I mean, it's a lot. But
And did you sell them on this idea? Like, hey, this is a lot to maintain.
Nope.
They were already doing it, asking for the bid.
Yep. In
Okay.
the bid, it's 3 rounds of that.
3 rounds.
Yep. So
And how much are you charging per yard?
Well, since they vary so much, that's hard to say. But basically, what I did was I took the bag value,
Mm-hmm.
doubled it, and then also added my hourly time.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean we make good money. I mean, it doesn't take too long to walk the 4 acres, but you also got to figure drive time. I mean, it's a day between drive time and walking. So yeah, I get my normal labor rate plus I double the cost.
Double the cost of the bag.
Double the retail cost of the bag. Yeah. So
yeah. not the contractor's pricing, not the discounted.
Right.
Okay.
I always
And what are your profit margins on that? Do you know?
No, but I mean I bet at least 80%.
80, yeah.
At least.
Yeah. I remember last year you were showing me some of your numbers on the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang. We don't do enough of those.
Yeah.
Actually, we need to push that harder. And it's a good service.
Oh, I was like, don't be competing with me.
No. To our existing residential clients.
Yeah.
I mean, it keeps us from having to go back there and spot spray Roundup.
Mm-hmm.
It's another upsell while we're on the property.
Yeah.
If we're already they're doing something.
I have noticed a lot of guys are adding it into the price of mulch. So if they're laying mulch down for another $10 a yard, they'll put that.
Yeah.
But I mean that's $10 for a yard of mulch. I mean they're making some money on that for sure.
Oh yeah.
And when you're talking the difference between $80 and $90 a yard, it doesn't seem like much to them. And it would take 15 seconds to do 10 yards of mulch. So I mean you made $100 in your 20 seconds that you spread it.
Yeah. That's my favorite. Like when you're able to overlap a service like that,
right?
Your profit margin just goes through the roof.
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool. All right, so got a little feel for your business, how you got into it. Let's talk pricing.
Okay.
Give me if you and I want the honest truth. That's why I had you on here.
Okay.
Like I know you're going to be genuine, but like tell me how you were pricing in the beginning.
Okay.
Good things, bad things, stuff that you might have changed. And then kind of give your mindset on pricing your services now.
Okay. When I started, because I worked with Zach.
Yep.
So I went off of a lot of what he charged.
Okay.
As a solo guy, because I had no idea. I didn't have any of my connections to the industry that I had yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, and being a solo guy, you can afford to charge cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And we did that. Jim, to this day, still keeps, don't be scared of prosperity. Don't be scared of prosperity. So, but
what does he mean by that?
He means that know your value.
Yeah.
Basically. I mean, you just got to know who you're competing with. If you want to stay a solo $20 guy and work your tail off and never make any money, then you can be cheap and you can be busier than you can be and make your life miserable. But yeah, so it started off at that like $55 an hour rate.
Mm-hmm.
Never got told no, obviously.
Yeah.
So
so you were just walking up to any job.
Yeah,
You're like, I'm gonna pull these vines off of this tree.
Yeah.
Probably gonna take me about 2 hours.
Right.
You're like $110.
Yep. Yeah. And that worked well because I salary myself at about $40,000 a year, a little bit less actually. I think it's $20 an hour for a regular work week, and then we've got high deductible insurance, and we pay 100% of that. So that was really the overhead at the beginning because Jim funded stuff. So
your salary, and then you're saying health insurance.
and health insurance,
Yep.
yeah. So for me and the family,
Mm-hmm.
so that was fine, or that much money was fine to cover that.
Yep.
When I obviously got way too busy. I was working 100-hour weeks every week. I mean, there was a 6 or 8 week period a couple years ago that I was averaging like 115, 120 hours a week. Obviously, you're dying.
Mm-hmm. Is that when you were doing those big sod installs?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! And then going back and watering them.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I was getting up at 4 every morning, and earliest to get home was 9.
Yeah.
But there was one day I got some help from my buddies, kind of weekend warrior guys that went out and laid it for me. But we didn't have another water tank. So I had to fill up the water tank and go back out and water, and we were out till like 2 that morning watering sod so it didn't burn up. But
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the cop came and asked us what the hell we were doing. just trying to
free
work,
water,
man.
bud.
Just trying to work.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, no. And then, so then as I got busier, I'm like, well, I obviously can't take all the work. So I just started increasing my prices.
Yep.
I'm bidding everything at $80 an hour. I include drive time. I take.
And you drive slow.
Yeah. No, I don't have time to drive slow.
You factor in driving slow. You're like, I'll be there in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's 5 minutes away.
Yeah.
Drive time's half an hour.
But yeah,
We're safe.
So then, and then I take any material that I use, I take retail price and then add at least 20%, depending on what it is.
Unless it's mulch pre-emergence, you double the bag.
Yeah, unless it's mulch pre-emergent, double the bag. Because when I bid that the first time, I bid it way too low. And then
Bid what the first time?
The
mulch pre-emergence.
No, well, that whole contract, because that pre-emergent is with the bed maintenance contract. So I bid it too low the first time. But after they open the bids, because it's municipality, it's public knowledge, public information. So you get to compare where your bid was at to the other ones, which is not, you're stuck for that price for a year. And still being me solo, I made plenty for me. But when you start comparing your rates to the big company rates, then it gives you a lot more confidence to boost your prices.
That's a good point.
Because if you want to be that, you're going to have that overhead sometime, and you have to raise your prices before you have the overhead, or you're going to either lose all the cheap customers
Choke out
you
and
had.
die,
Right. Yeah. So it's, if you're going to grow, it's very important to raise your prices pre-doing that, because it would be terrifying going from $55 to $85 an hour. As soon as you add your first guy, you don't know who you're going to lose, because that's a huge increase to your customers. But we've raised all our mowing prices this year. Obviously, gas is going to get expensive. But we can stay off that topic. But you
can go there for 3 minutes if you want.
No. Yeah, gas prices obviously going up, so we raised all our mowing prices. And it's just something that if you want to grow, and I don't think enough people talk about it, but you need to think a year, 2 years down the road and make sure your prices can support that, or you can get them to the point where they can support that growth.
Yeah, which is hard to do. It's for a new guy starting out.
Yes.
Like you're thinking, okay, well, what am I going to be doing in 2 years? They're just thinking,
right,
how do I make myself get paid by Friday?
Right.
Cover my health insurance like you were.
Yep.
We've been preaching to exactly what you did about increasing capacity, because too many people are worried about efficiency when really they're not maxed out on capacity.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what you did. I mean, you had low overhead, but you stuck with your low prices, got yourself busy,
Mm-hmm. Right.
had some work, had some cash flow. You were
Right.
still making money.
Right.
And then you were like, okay, now I'm so freaking busy that supply and demand just took over.
Yes.
And you had to increase your prices.
Exactly. And I mean, good and bad.
Yeah.
But I keep raising my prices and people still aren't telling me no.
Yeah.
And I don't do any marketing yet. I
Yeah.
mean, we still get more work than we can do. And even raising my prices, my customers know me now.
Yep.
And I'm about to the point where I think they're going to pay anything, and they're not going to even question it. That's, you know, but I just
That's not a bad question to ask. I've done that before. Like, Billy, when would you say no? And he's like, $800 per app. Be like, well, we're going to be in at $750.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, it's and it. I mean, it is because of the low barrier to entry, because of the reputation of the industry.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it is hard to get good people.
Mhm.
And when somebody finds somebody that, one, respects them, two, does what they say they're going to do,
Mhm.
and three, does a good job, most people have had bad enough experience with other companies that they don't even blink at a $5 an hour raise or $10 an hour raise. I mean, they're just like, yep, cool, go for it.
Yep.
And when I was solo, I actually had several of my customers like, you need to raise your prices. After I did a couple jobs for them. So, I mean,
why didn't you tell me this before you cut the check, bud?
yeah. And I'm like, all right, done.
That's good though. That's good. And I like that story though speaks to you, like building rapport, building relationships, and doing a good job.
Yes.
Like it's one, you set your prices low, but if you wouldn't have delivered on the other side of that, you never would have created the demand for your service.
Right. Exactly.
And that's where the low barrier to entry sucks, because we often get compared to those companies that are cheap.
Yep.
And they have cheap service.
Yep.
So just because you're doing low prices for 1 to 2 years doesn't mean that your service is cheap.
Right.
It means
Exactly.
that you're trying to build relationships, and it's honestly it's kind of the same theory as you working for that guy. It's like I could go somewhere else and make more money, but I'm going to learn a trade. I'm going to develop relationships. I'm going to learn skills. I'm going to buy some time. And that's exactly what you're doing with the client base. Like, I'm buying time. I'm buying a relationship, and I'm giving myself leverage so that when I do raise prices, I already have existing cash flow in place.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, that's good, man. It's good stuff. So
I learned it all the hard way too. I mean,
the hard way.
Yeah, I mean,
we all do, man.
Yep,
You make mistakes.
Yes. And I mean, we did. I got a leaf vac this last fall.
Yeah.
And we put it together, and so I made a couple huge mistakes.
Hit me with it.
Okay.
I want to hear the story, because we met about trying to get you leaf jobs. So I want to hear. I want to hear how all this went.
We got some leaf jobs, and they got some deals. All right. So what? First, we got some from you, and we also put door hangers, and the door hangers in the nick of time works. First mistake.
What was your return on door hangers?
I bet we put out maybe 100, and I bet we got 10 to 15. Like,
what?
Crazy. Yeah, crazy.
Why didn't you put out 1,000, bud?
Didn't have time. Capacity. But
shoot,
it's a good thing I did.
If you start getting that return again, I will go put out 900 for you, as long as you give me a cut of those sales. Yeah. That's nuts.
Yeah. But
we get like 1.25 out of every 100.
Yeah. And I think we were real strategic about putting them down, but we're getting kind of off here.
No, you're good. You're good. But it's beneficial. Like, guys hit me up about brochures all the time.
Yeah.
I'm sure you hit it at the peak time.
Yeah.
You hit it in the right area.
Yeah.
You hit it where you're doing existing jobs.
Yeah. Yeah and no. We put them in areas, big oak trees, and we also paid attention to who had stripes in their yard, who already had a contractor. Didn't
No.
even bother.
Yeah.
Because they either offer it and they turned it down, or
Yeah.
they offered it and they took it.
Yeah.
So there's no point. Yeah, just the big oak trees. So the first thing I did that was bad is I looked at the yard. I had no idea how long it was going to take to get leaves to the curb to get sucked up by the vac. Second,
How long did you think? Because you're at this
I
point, you're
was-
doing like $75 per man hour is what you're saying?
Yeah. And yeah, I was bidding stuff at the one that sticks out. I think I bid it at 3 hours, and there were a couple of neighbors. So I figured like 3 and 3, but it turned out to be like a day and a half.
Oh my God.
So we actually made less money than we were paying. We lost. I mean, we literally lost money on those. And
what were you thinking? Like, so were you there on the job?
Yeah, let's go back. So I bid it, and the leaves had just started falling.
No, I was saying, like, what were you thinking mid lawn? Like, hour and a half in, what were you thinking?
Pissed? Probably not repeatable.
Just straight up pissed off.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah.
Teddy Ross getting pissed off is the best, by the way.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, very frustrated. But the first mistake I made, I looked at what was on the ground, and they just started falling, and I probably wouldn't have been too far off on my guess at that point. But he asked, "Hey, you mind if you don't do it this weekend? You can come back at the end of next week." And
smart on his part.
Yeah,
He's been around the block.
I'm dumb. I'm like, yeah, sure, that's not a problem. Dude, come back and it's knee deep the whole way. I'm like, because I mean, these are multiple massive.
Are your neighbors in on this, bud?
Yeah, 80-foot oak trees. I mean, I was like, oh.
Where's this at? Like Prairie Village somewhere? Mission?
Yeah, Overland Park, right over there.
Yeah.
Prairie Village, Overland Park. Yeah. So, yeah, we get through that. Just about done, and one of the neighbors comes out, and one of the ones we're doing, and they're like, "Yeah, I think you bit off a little more than you could chew for a couple $100 here." I was like, "Yeah,
You think?"
yeah." I was like, "Yeah, you're right." And they're like, "We'll pay you extra." And I looked at them and said, "Nope, this is my mistake."
I'm eating it.
Yep, I said the lessons learned in pain are learned best, and they laughed, and I was like, "Just get me work in the future so I can make up for some of this." Yeah, absolutely. And they actually called me this spring, had me do a bunch of landscape work because they're getting ready to move out.
You bend them over?
Oh no, I charged my normal rate, but
Good.
yeah, we made money
made
on it.
money that time.
Yeah. But I was actually weeding some beds, and they pulled up, and they're like, "Hey, what's up?" And they love me.
You're still in business?
Yeah. How does that work? Yeah. But so yeah, I mean, our leaf pricing. Yeah, it was brutal. But,
Well, okay, so tell me now, like, do you have a minimum price? Give some tips to those guys out there so that can try not to happen to them.
I would suggest having a 150 minimum.
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
And you're talking 5,000 to 8,000 square foot lawns.
Yeah. And the ones we did were much bigger than that. But, yeah, I'm not going to have anybody less than 150 this year.
Yeah.
But that goes back to I didn't have any of the work, and I was being cheap to fill the bucket. Once it starts overflowing.
Yeah, you were excited to use that leaf mulcher.
Yeah. And we bought it used from one of our buddies.
Yep.
8 hours in, the motor blew.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And he's a great dude.
8 hours in, that means you were just on that job.
Oh, yeah. Well, that wasn't the first job, but yeah. So, yeah, we ended up having to flip the motor out of it.
Oh,
so,
man.
I mean, yeah,
there's money in it though. You're going to make some good money this fall.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a learning curve, and you have to be willing to put yourself out there and make mistakes, because that's the only way to learn.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't.
There's guys out there raking it in. So I don't know if you've seen people do this, but Brian Fullerton, we know this guy online, and he has, like, the clients will rake it to the curb, and then he's charging 100 and 150, and he'll just come
Suck them up.
them up. And so it's already prepped. They've done kind of the grunt work to get it there. They just want them gone.
Yeah.
Which that's insane.
Yeah.
I was like, man, you got people doing that. So it's just like $150, 15 minutes, and then you're out of there.
Driving through Prairie Village, yeah, there was all kinds of stuff that was raked out and people just rolling by.
Getting
But another thing that I didn't think of when I was pricing that was the dump time. To get to the dump time,
yeah.
you have to charge for that too, because you can spend 2 hours on the lawn. You're like, yeah, we're doing all right, but by the time you get there, dump it, get to your next job, you just killed an hour and a half, and that time of year you don't have much daylight. So
Yep.
you're, even if you bid the actual work right, if you don't factor in drive time, you're still not making any money.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's leaf. You really do need to be very efficient because of the lack of daylight to make some money. But like you said, once you get it figured out, yeah, there's
Money to be made.
yeah, but the job sucks,
Yeah.
and that's why nobody wants to do it.
That's why nobody's doing it. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And that's why you've got to be charging for it.
Yes,
So
and all of it.
go back to what you said about like don't be afraid of prosperity. I want you to stick with that a little bit and go down a couple different ways, because I know for me there's, as the owner, I view that as like, hey, don't be afraid to strive for wealth.
Right.
Don't be afraid. So
Yes.
you can
And
take it
that's-
that way.
Yeah, and that's what Jim. I think that's a lot of what Jim means when he because he's explained it to me that way a few times as well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And what other ways would you view that, especially as it relates to like pricing your services? Don't be afraid of prosperity. Like thinking back to when you first started, were you just worried that the client was going to say no, the fear of rejection, or just, hey, I'm worried I'm not going to be able to eat, so I'm just pricing this way.
Right. Yeah. So that was most of it, because I was in car sales before I was at Overland Park, so I'm not scared of rejection.
Yeah.
Nobody likes a car guy.
I forgot you were in car
Yeah.
salesman.
End of story. I got over that. That doesn't.
Do you have like a car salesman pitch?
Well, you just
Like,
off the
did you have like a standard like line that you would say? Like everybody's got their go-to, like,
No.
so I walk in,
I
I want to buy a car. What are you saying to me?
I fact find, and
Yeah.
and that's, if you're going to be good at sales, you have to fact find. You can't push somebody into something they don't want.
Yeah.
Period. I don't
Yeah.
care who you are. You might get lucky once in a while, but my
So you're fact finding.
Yes,
like you're
fact-finding.
loading your sales gun. So you're
Yes.
just trying to figure out what they're looking
yes.
for.
What's the hot button? What is their pain point?
Yeah.
And then just build rapport. I mean, I think it helps a lot that I came from a little hick town in South Central Kansas,
Mm-hmm.
and that was my opening thing.
So there we
One, I
go.
kinda
That's it.
right. Yeah. I mean,
What'd you say? I'm
when
a
I was
hillbilly
building-
from South Central Kansas.
yeah,
How you doing?
yeah, I'm from a little hick town in South Central. Well, and it would be.
And they
I'd walk up,
immediately trust
introduce
you?
myself, yeah, and then we would get to talking about what they wanted, and then they realized that I wasn't going to push them anything they didn't want. I had a guy that came in and was looking at a hybrid Camry, and I was like, so what do you want this for? He's like, I drive. I think it was like 80,000 miles a year, because he was like a traveling guy. I'm like, well, honestly, the difference between a hybrid on the highway and a gas on the highway is only 4 miles a gallon different. And for $7 grand, whatever it was, you're gonna have to drive a lot more miles than that to ever make up your $5-7 grand on, 4 gallon,
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, oh, and so I actually talked him down a car
That's cool.
and saved him money. And that's that. I mean, that's the name of the game, is getting people on what they want.
Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff does translate when you're selling something. You go to them and find out I mean, obviously they're probably calling you for something,
Yeah.
but instead of just going in and like, oh, here's your price,
Yeah.
it really, really helps if you dig at pain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so have you had this done before?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, what happened there?
Yeah.
And they'll tell you a horror story about either some Joe Blow or
Mhm.
whatever that came in and either didn't do it well, didn't show up, whatever. And then you can just laugh and make a joke about it, and like, oh yeah, and then just whatever their pain point was, whether it was not done well, whether it wasn't they were on time,
Mm-hmm.
you just make sure you execute on that like crazy.
Yep.
And
Because
So
you're
then
trying
the
to fill a
rest-
need.
right,
And-
that's all sales is finding a need,
Mm-hmm.
filling it,
Filling
and,
it.
and if you know that they're disappointed with something in the past, you just kill that part because that's the only part they're looking at again.
Exactly.
I mean,
And that's kind of like the little peer behind the curtain. Like and I like what you said about don't just show up and give a quote.
yeah,
Because there's so many guys that they're losing landscape bids because that's all they're doing.
yes,
They're just a number.
yes,
And so you just show up and handing them a number doesn't help them any.
right,
And the other thing is, like, that's your opportunity to show your worth, your value, your professionalism, your expertise. So instead of handing them the quote, be like, hey, I know you wanted this. Let's walk the property. What else do you have going on?
Yep.
What are you truly looking for? It become more than a number because they may say they want something, but they really need something else. That happens all the time.
all the time. And yeah, when you're, and I think upsell has a bad connotation, which it shouldn't.
Yeah.
But when you're walking a property with somebody and they're like, oh, I want this downspout and this downspout done, I just put in a couple of downspouts. You like, oh, you good with that one then?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I don't know why I missed that one. And and bam, there's another 30%.
Yep.
I mean, it's and
it's helping them.
It's helping them. Yeah.
Like that's
like if you went in and
upsell.
if you went in and did those two and left the one that they didn't notice, then they're in the same boat. I mean, it didn't do anything.
Yeah. It just feels weird when you're, because you are picturing a used car salesman. Sorry to use that, but like you're just picturing that guy when you think upsell,
Right. Yeah.
rather than add value. And it by adding
That's a
value, we're just
huge
saying
difference.
like
Yes.
help them. Like, could you imagine
Yes.
being in the dentist office and you're there for a cleaning and you have 3 cavities, and the dentist is scared to upsell you on your 3 cavities?
Right.
Then you end up having to get a root. Like,
Right.
you wouldn't be mad in that situation.
Right.
It's the same thing. You're
Yes.
just helping somebody.
Yep.
I also like what you said about like if they had a really bad experience. One of the things that I always do is Chris Voss talks about like anchoring people really low. I always like to use like humor and then anchoring people really low so that we move that off the table. So when I find out, hey, the previous guy just like either took the money and bailed, or hey, he was a no-show, I'll like use humor to show them like, hey, we're not going to do that to you. So I'll say things like, well, hey, if you're handing out checks and letting people bounce, I'll finish this right now. You know, and then they're like, they laugh about it, and then they're like, okay, this guy's clearly not going to do that to me.
Right.
But that's what I do. Or like when they say, is it pet and kid friendly?
Yeah.
I'll always say like, we've killed 3 dogs this past week.
Right.
I know yours is not going to be next. I promise you. It just helps diffuse the situation a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing. I mean, in car sales, especially when you get to the negotiation point, it gets tense with a lot of people. I mean, it depends on personality, obviously, but I mean, I had a customer that was getting red in the face, getting mad because we weren't giving enough for his trade. And I slid my chair back because he was getting pissed. I started slamming my head in the desk. I'm like, let me help you. Let me help you. He started laughing and got the deal done the next deal.
That's awesome.
You have to bring humor, especially into tense.
Yeah.
Especially into tense. But
just be real.
Yeah.
Be human. Be authentic.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do this. Let's wrap it up with we're talking pricing. You've given us some good stories about like the leaf removal and some good feedback on mulch pre-emergence. If you don't mind, share a little bit about, and you can even tell what you were charging if you want to give that depth, but like, what are you charging per yard of mulch right now, if it's 5 yards or less?
I do very little, 5 yards or less.
Okay, so what is your minimum then? That would be a good number too.
Probably at 150. I mean, that's really kind of a flat
for how many yards?
Just to show up.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if they've got 2 yards of mulch, it doesn't change my time as far as going there, getting it back.
Yeah.
And then it's $40 a yard.
Okay.
So I mean, like 150 on, but I very rarely run into that because people that need that much will go buy 10 bags and throw it down themselves.
Okay.
So I mean, most of my mulch is 7 yards and up.
Okay. So a 10-yard job. What are you doing per yard?
I'll do 80 a yard.
80 a yard.
Yep. and our cost of the mulch is like 32 or 33 right now. I think it went up a little bit this year, but and that's if you're getting it by the trailer load. We for that Shawnee bed contract, we put down 300, which so we bought semis, and when you buy semis, I think we got it for like 16, 17
for a semi.
Yeah. So when we get to that point, the facilities, if you could order a semi, because it's delivered, and the reason, and if you don't get it delivered and just order a semi at a time, it was like 22 for them to keep it there. So yeah, once you get the facilities, if you can just order mulch in, I mean, you just added.
That's good to know.
Yeah, you just added.
That'd be good for Seth to know too, because that's what he's going to be doing at our shop. Like we're going to be putting a couple semi loads back there. And trying to develop relationships with guys like you to come and get them. Okay, so $32 a yard, unless it's a semi, around 16. If they're holding it, it's 22. Charging $80 a yard, right? And what on big jobs like what you were just talking about? Do you have a scale where you're like, okay, if it's 25 yards, I'm gonna drop it down to this. If it's 50 yards, I'm gonna drop it down to this. If it's 100, you just keep it 80 flat.
Yeah.
And okay, good.
And sometimes if I can get more, I'll get more. I mean,
is there any situation where you're like, oh man, I'm gonna have to wheelbarrow in a weird situation?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, you have to look at how far you're gonna be able with the trailer to how far to get back there. And that $80 a yard, and I started at like 65 when I started doing it. And so I could personally get down like 2 yards an hour or a little bit less than that. So I was right at, and that's how I kind of bid everything, even though I did it by the yard because I knew that's how everybody else was charging. It dawned on me this year, the reason why people are doing it by the yard. I rented a U-cart, and you can get a yard in it at a time, drive it around, and then dump it and spread it. Now, whenever you bid like a landscape job, I put in my hours worked. But when you get equipment to make you so much more efficient, then I can get a yard down in 15 minutes. If I separated, instead of charging by the yard, I separated and put my labor in, then my prices would fall off a cliff because of the better equipment, which obviously you got to pay for the better equipment, so you can't do that. But you don't want somebody looking at a bid and saying, well, you charged me for 4 hours to put down mulch, it took you 15 minutes because you got a good piece of equipment. Then you're just going to get objections at the end of it. Like, you were only here for an hour, you charged me for 4. What's this about? And so that's, I've kind of.
You're doing per yard now.
Yes. Well, I've always done that because that was the industry standard, is just charging by the yard. But I figured my yard price by how much I could put down with a wheelbarrow. Does that make sense?
Yep.
But yeah, so your dirt install, because your dirt is by the yard. So that was kind of it hit me this year. That's why some of the stuff you bid by an hour, some of the stuff you do. And there are a lot of contractors that don't like to put how many hours they're doing. And I can see that now, because when you get better equipment, you can't charge for only your time because you're paying for equipment too. So then
that's the last thing you want to do, is start getting into here's how long it takes with the client. I mean, we're on some of our properties for 5 minutes.
Right.
And so I don't want them calling and saying, well, what did you do here? We do have clients like, you were in and out. Did you even do the backyard? Like, yeah. And so they're like, well, then what am I paying for? Like, you're paying for prodiamine, slow release fertilizer that cost me $2,000 per freaking bulk tank. So
you're paying for knowledge is what you're paying for.
You're paying for
Just let me do my thing. Just hang up the phone. We'll be back in 6 weeks.
We'll be back in 6 weeks. But that's a really good point. Like, because starting off, you do think about time a lot, and you do get tempted to put in, hey, this is, because you just said, I used to walk up, look at something, it's going to take me 2 hours, $55 per man hour. So that's really tempting to just put that on the quote sheet, especially when you're doing it on your own through QuickBooks or Microsoft Word. But that can get you into some issues.
I actually think that, because I still do that for some stuff, because I don't have a lot of the real efficient equipment. So I'll when I break down jobs, and some people aren't going to like this, but I will put my hourly rate and I will put down the cost to pick up and deliver X material, how long it's going to take me to do it. And I do break it out. But like
that's when it looks good on paper.
Because that is how long I'm going to be there.
Yeah. But if you know you're going to be uber efficient,
right,
or you get another piece of equipment that makes you efficient,
right, then that's why a lot of these big contractors just have their bulk price. They don't break anything out because they don't want to be questioned.
Yeah.
And I see that now, but and it was only because I rented that one piece of equipment for that huge job that we already had. So it was just a ding ding for me.
Yeah.
I'm a little slower than most. It took me a few years.
I'm with you, man. I've made the same mistake. I have when I first started green again, like we had like 45 mowing clients, like 5 fertilizer clients. So I was taking anything, and I completely lost my shirt on a landscape job. 2 guys that were working with me, they made like $800 a piece. I lost about $1,500.
Yeah.
Just didn't know what I was doing. Didn't know my pricing.
Yep. It happens.
Didn't estimate how long. Like I was like, this is going to take about this many man hours. It took me 5 times longer.
Yeah.
Plus, I had guys with me that didn't know what they were doing, so we're all like learning on the job.
Yep. And that's the thing, when you can't be scared of that.
Yep.
I mean, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, especially when you jump into something new.
Yep.
And you just eat it, and when you eat it, you learn. You don't make that mistake.
You do not.
You do not. And then if I mess up, I tell the client every time, like, hey, I blew this one.
That's a good point.
And they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, that was going to take this long. It took this long. I ran into this, and this that I didn't expect. And they're like, oh, okay. And a lot of times they'll offer to pay more. And I always reject it, but I always get more work.
Yep.
They know I'm sticking to my guns, and I'm human.
Yeah.
And I'm relatable, and that's
huge. With trust, man.
Yes,
like,
that's
huge.
more valuable than the $1,500 you lost. You're gonna make more money. You're gonna get it back.
That's a $1,500 master's class in not being stupid with your pricing ever again.
Yep, exactly.
Now you know your numbers.
When it hurts, it hurts.
Yep.
And you remember that. You don't touch your stove twice.
Exactly. I know that's there now. I'm not going to hit that again.
Yep.
Oh man, this is good. Okay, so and then real quick, I know we've been chatting a minute here. So talked mulch, you've talked leaf cleanup, some of your pricing there. What about like your cost per man hour is what now? 85?
I'm
75?
about 80.
80?
Yeah.
$80 per man hour. What other pricing would you like to share with us?
Not really pricing, but to your solo guys that are thinking about employees.
Mm-hmm.
And I got lucky, and I hired great guys right off the bat. Now they were expensive because I knew them, and I pulled them from the city. But even with tremendous work ethic, I found I'm in shape. I'm younger. I was 20% slow on bids because I bid them how fast I could do it. So whenever you hire employees, you need to build in a percentage because they're not going to be as fast, most likely.
So you're
as
saying
you are.
Factor in everybody's only half as good as Teddy.
20%, 15-20%. And that gives you a little
Buddy,
wiggle
you're only
room.
going to be half as good as me.
Yeah. But, I mean, when you hire guys, especially if you don't, I don't have this issue, but I've heard lots of guys like, I can't hire anybody. They're on their phone the whole time. And if you're bidding these jobs with your help that isn't helping, you're still going to lose your shirt, and you still got to pay them.
That's a really good
So
point.
you do need to factor in for them to be slower because they're not going to care as much, and it's not their job to. And that's one thing I wish owners would kind of understand. If you want them to care as much as you do, you need to not just be a boss.
Yeah.
You have to lead. And
they're never going to care as much as you do.
They're
never.
They
don't have that much money on the table.
Right. And honestly, it's not. they should show up and they should work and they should do their job. But yeah, to expect someone without incentive, especially if you're just playing a flat rate and trying to get as cheap as you can get to put more money in your pocket, if you don't care about them, they're not gonna care about you.
Yeah.
The more you care, the more they'll care. But
and that's got to be factored in your pricing.
yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Because
Man, that's a really good point.
Even caring about your guys, you're gonna hire people that aren't gonna care as much. And it's not your job to lose money over it.
That's good. It's awesome, man. This has been valuable.
I hope so.
Yeah, it is. It's going to help some people. I know it is. Why don't you real quick? Let's say there's a lawn and landscape guy out there that's like, I like that Teddy dude. Are you okay with them reaching out to you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. How do you want them to reach out to you? Email, Instagram, Facebook?
That's actually something we haven't really got our social media going.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah.
That's why you're here for pricing and not marketing.
Yeah, that's
or
right.
branding.
Yeah, exactly. That's something I need to work on, but
where
it's in the pipe.
You want them to email you?
Yeah, email, text, call. I'm easy.
Okay.
Are you just gonna?
I'll put it in the show notes.
Okay,
Put
perfect.
it in the show notes.
Yeah.
That work. Cool, man.
All right.
Appreciate you, bro.
Yep. No problem.
We'll see you. As easy as that.
Sweet.